Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Let's Play Warframe. I'm your host of the most, as always, Francois878. And today we're going to be going through all of Hydroid's changes in update 21.4. I'm a little hesitant to call it an actual rework. I would say a revisit is more accurate. Part of me wants to call it minor quality of life adjustments that honestly should have launched with Hydroid back in update 13, but hey, you know, it's fine. DE's getting there. But we're gonna go through the patch notes here real quickly, and then I'm gonna break down why I'm kind of disappointed with the rework overall. And I was honestly not that disappointed at first. I went around, I was talking to people about it, and I thought it was a good rework at first, and then I actually broke it down and realized that there were things that were changed that weren't, that it wasn't actually in the initial patch notes, and that kind of screwed my opinion a little bit. So, moving on. The patch notes are as follows. For Tempest Barrage, Hydroid's first ability, it can now be cast while in Undertow, which is his puddle, his third ability, and will now hit enemies submerged in Undertow. This is nearly useless. Like, this is good synergy because the two abilities synergize now, but unless you're running the Tempest Barrage Augment, the enemies in Undertow are already CC'd. Tempest Barrage, it deals terrible non-scaling damage. The only reason you use Tempest Barrage is because you need crowd control. And it's very unreliable crowd control. So, A Tempest Barrage can now be charged up just by holding the one key for a longer duration and more damage for more energy. Now, this is approximately double the duration for double the energy cost. It basically saves you from having to tap the button another time. It's not a bad change. I kind of like it. But, again, the problem with Tempest Barrage is that there are lots of other ways to get more reliable crowd control. There's 100 different weapons that can proc blast just as easily as Tempest Barrage, and arguably more reliably. So, honestly, Tempest Barrage in a in an ideal world, in a great rework, Tempest Barrage would have been removed completely and replaced with a new ability. Now, Hydroid's second ability, Tidal Surge. Tidal Surge can now be used to move around without canceling Undertow. So while you're in Undertow, in your puddle form, you can use Tidal Surge to move around at the cost of energy, obviously. Note that Tidal Surge speed and hence distance is halved when used in Undertow. That's fine, I don't care. I would like I would like Undertow not to be the AFK death trap that it is. So it's nice that you are able to move around a little bit. Tidal Surge will now pull enemies along for the ride. This is also not a bad change. You're basically able to gather up enemies. So if you hit, let's say, 4 enemies in a line, wherever you stop, all of those enemies are going to be bunched up right there and knocked over. So you can group them together more easily for weapons like the tentacle or the lens, assuming you don't blow yourself up. It's alright. It's not great. It's alright. Now, Tidal Surge can be interrupted at any point by casting Undertow to go into your puddle, sinking enemies being pulled along with you. So, same sort of thing that I just kind of explained. If you don't have a tentacle or a lens, instead of, you can just go into your 3. You can just hit your 2, gather up a whole big group of enemies, and then go right into your 3 and take care of the problem that way. It's not bad synergy. You know, his 2, the problem with his 2 is that it's uncontrollable. It's just a straight line dash. And while these new synergies help a lot, it's still not a great ability. I'd rather work with some parkour that I can actually control than with Tidal Surge. So it's eh. Now, Undertow, enemies that Hydroid... Great. Hydroid can now pull enemies into Undertow by aiming and clicking on them. So this is a change that was implemented because of an undocumented change in the patch notes. The original range for Undertow, which is the puddle, was 15 meters. Post-rework, it is 3 meters. However, the grab range in which you can point at an enemy and click them and a little tentacle will come out and grab them and pull them into the pool is still 15 meters, and that is unupgradable. It is not affected by power range mods. So basically they've tried to take Undertow and make it a little less AFK death trappy, and I'm kind of okay with this. Like, I kind of would rather have had the bigger range, but at the same time, if I have to keep the puddle, I'd rather have less range and actually have to work to get people into my puddle, if that makes any sense. Undertow can now be cast while in the air. That's fine. That's a great improvement. It should have been added in Update 13, but hey, whatever. Jump and roll will break Hydroid out of Undertow. Again, Update 13. Hydroid can now move while in Undertow at the expense of energy. The problem with that is that you move so incredibly slowly. It's painful. It's not worth it. You can, especially when you can just Tidal Surge around. Tidal Surge costs a lot more energy to use, but it is actually viable. It's a viable way to move. Submerged enemies in Undertow receive damage per second, increasing every second they are submerged. It's scaling damage. It's very low, very weak scaling damage, but it is technically scaling damage, so it's alright. Enemies that die will be released from Undertow instead of having their dragging their dead bodies along for the ride. This is nice synergy with Necros. Before, Necros couldn't desecrate any dead bodies that Undertow took care of, so this is a nice little change for that. Tentacle Swarm. This has got another undocumented change. The old range for Tentacle Swarm was 20 meters, and this is at level 30 base range. The new range for the uncharged Tentacle Swarm is 5 meters. 5 meters. Okay? Now, this first little upgrade here, Tentacle Swarm can be charged for more tentacles over a larger area for more energy. Now, this is a very similar mechanic to the Tempest Barrage, except it's basically more range for more energy. But it's not really more energy. When you charge up Tentacle Swarm for the full duration, it's actually only going to cost you the normal amount of energy than it would cost you. If you just tap your 4 and you get that 5 meter Tentacle Swarm, it's going to cost you half as much energy. So it's not bad. It's not great for pilfering Swarm, but if you have a choke point that you need to lock down real quick, it's not as much of an energy cost. And you don't have to sit there and channel it. And the channeled range is about 15 meters. This is not a confirmed amount. I did some experimentation in the simulator. I reckon that it's about 15 meters, fully charged. So it's still technically a nerf to Pilfering Swarm because there is less area that your tentacles will be taking up. And that range is affected by range mods, just to establish that right now. Hydroid tentacles will now seek out nearby enemies and attempt to slam on top of them rather than just flailing randomly and hoping they hit something. This is nice. It's better. It's still not perfect from what I've seen. The AI is still kind of a mess. Honestly, when an enemy gets hit by a Hydroid tentacle and starts flailing them around, it's the damage on Tentacle Swarm isn't good enough to actually kill the enemies, but also you can't hit them because they're being flailed around by the tentacles, so... Tentacle Swarm will protrude from Hydroid's Undertow if cast when active. So if you're in Undertow, if you're in your puddle, and you either quick cast or you channel Tentacle Swarm, all of the tentacles will be basically, well, 99% will be in the area of your Undertow, your little 3 meters of your puddle. It's not bad for choke points. There are definitely certain maps where you can set up choke points and just watch all of the enemies just get destroyed by the by your tentacles. But other than that, you kind of want a good spread on your tentacles, so there's a lot of surface area being covered, especially if you're running Pilfering Swarm. So it's not really the greatest little addition, but it is some synergy with his 3. So overall, I just feel like it just wasn't really enough. You know, these undocumented changes to the range of Undertow, and even though they didn't really change the range, you just have to work a little harder now with Undertow. It's still something that should have been mentioned in the patch notes. You know, the fact that, because now it looks like they're hiding it, you know? So, same thing with Tentacle Swarm, the changes should have been made obvious, and I don't know. Here's the thing, is a lot of people are going around who support this rework saying that, Pilfering Swarm isn't the only meta, that lots of people use Hydroid for other reasons. I have not met a single person who's ever used Hydroid for anything other than Pilfering Swarm. And maybe a few people with Curative Undertow, but Pilfering Swarm is the Hydroid meta. And now it's not. And quite frankly, Curative Undertow got a nerf too, because your range is much lower and it's a lot harder to get allies in there to heal them. Because you don't have that 15-meter range. So, overall, you know, is it a terrible rework? Could it have been worse? Absolutely. They could have, you know, just taken away all of his abilities, and except for Undertow, and just had that. But it's definitely didn't make him better either. I think it added a lot of synergy, and I think that it's good synergy. I think that all of these abilities are okay by themselves, and they're not reliant on synergy with the other abilities to be good. It's optional synergy. You know, there are frames out there who've been reworked, Saren, who, unless you're building very specifically for one ability, you have to synergize all of her abilities together to really get awesome results. And that takes a lot of energy and time and precision building with your mods, and there's not a lot of room for error. And it kind of locks you into a specific rotation of abilities. So, I don't know. Overall, I'm not mad, I'm not happy, I'm just kind of meh about the whole thing. The rework really didn't help Hydroid like it could have, and that's sad, unfortunately, because I think Hydroid really could have been brought up to a great level, and really the only thing this did was slightly nerf the one great augment that he had, the one great augment that he's got a monopoly on as far as loot generation, but that's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Until next time, I've been your host of the most, as always, Francois878, signing off.